All right. Welcome to the Pretty Sketchy Podcast. I'm here as always with acclaimed author and Fields Medal laureate Michael Marshman.
How long is this going to go on?
I didn't even know you did maths. And I just called it maths. Just that, wow. Okay. Anyway, all right. So here we are. Let's just do a little bit of backstory for the people, particularly audio podcast listeners. This is technically episode 4. We're doing it on a Thursday night, which is a little bit unusual. Actually, you should try and get on and
already got permission.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should spread the word on Facebook or whatever. So basically, we're live streaming on a Thursday night. Normally, we do it on a Saturday afternoon. The reason is last Saturday we had a bit of a catastrophe where Michael's audio didn't make it to the stream because I'm an idiot. So we're doing a catch up podcast. In lieu of losing all that other one, which is still available for live stream, but I'm not going to do it as an audio podcast because there's no point. So it'll be a little bit confusing. This is going to be episode 4, even though there is an episode 3 out there in the world, but not on iTunes. So if you're an audio listener, that's why it's a little bit weird. Okay, so in the 3.1 of episode 3, I was doing page 2 of the book. And I'm going to continue on with that today. If I get through that, I'm going to just jump back and do a little bit of work on page 1 again. Still got to do some planning for page 3. So, yet again, I was talking to Michael about this the other day, and essentially it's another exposition sort of page where Nissa is talking to her grandfather. He's imparting all of his old world sort of knowledge on her and letting her know who she is and what she's capable of and stuff like that. In a very lyrical way, not so much like a lot of dialogue, but it is, yeah, that's what it is.
Very subtle way is what I said last time, I believe.
Yeah. So, it's, I'm just going to continue on with that. Is there anything else you wanted to add about this particular part of the story, or?
Well, considering no one heard me last time.
Yeah, let's cover, we're going to have to cover a few extra bases, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, like, he knows a lot more than he's letting on, or he is a lot more than he's letting on.
Right on.
There is a backstory to all of this, like even to how Nissa has wings. Because amongst the world of regular humans, it's a bit odd that she can fly.
That's actually something I was gonna mention. So. I'm pretty vague on the story. I'm sort of figuring it out as we go along as well, which is cool. I kind of really like that. But that's the thing. So there aren't other sort of mutated. No, I really don't like using that word. But any other people with abilities like her in the world. So she's kind of unique.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
It's very. It has to do with genetics, I suppose.
Okay.
I really don't want to say a lot.
Yeah, no. Feel free to self-edit. That's cool.
But yeah, it belongs to a very select few, I suppose.
Okay, cool. So it's part of her lineage with her grandfather. Obviously, he's still letting you know about it.
Yeah. He's teaching her how to do it and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's very.
So it's pretty safe to assume that he's imbued with some sort of power as well.
Yes.
Right. Good. Okay. Cool. That's cool. I'm drawing him kind of mystical and interesting. So, yeah. So, where were we at? So this last panel last panel down the bottom here is going to show Nissa, not directly or indirectly, sort of learning to fly. So, I mentioned last time we came up with an idea of instead of just showing her running and jumping and stuff like that, we might just illustrate it by just putting shadows along
the ground and
exactly, so more alluding to it as opposed to actually showing it.
If, at this point, like, to be fair, it's only 2 pages in, but you haven't seen her with the wings yet.
That's right.
The big reveal comes when you cut back to the present and she jumps off the building.
Yeah, cool.
Spoilers.
Yeah, we'll probably get to that podcast in about 6 or 7 weeks.
I was expecting you to say 6 or 7 years, but
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Oh God.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. So, actually, one of the things we were talking about last time was indie sort of comics that probably not a lot of people pick up. And actually, if you'll indulge me for 2 seconds, I just changed locations at the last second. I got to grab something. 1 sec. Keep them entertained for a sec.
Keep him entertained, Jesus Christ. I'm not going to sing for you, if that's what you're asking, but I don't know, I suppose I'll talk more about the book and the page. I actually wanted to say that the grandfather is based on Hohenheim from Full Metal Alchemist.
And I'm back. All right.
Oh, hello. I was telling everyone that the grandfather himself is kind of based on a character from Full Metal Alchemist. His name's Hohenheim.
Okay.
He's the father of the two main characters, and he has a very similar sort of story, I guess. He, like, when you see him, he's not much to look at. He has a presence about him, but you don't really know what he's about until later on, and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
thank you for that. Actually reminds me of a story.
I was going to say, as you can tell, Corey's the more talkative of the two of us.
Dude, this is really, really, really embarrassing. The world's getting a heads up on this one right now. I used to be in a stage production where I played Austin Powers.
Oh, wow. I think you told me about
at
this.
A theatre restaurant. One day we're on stage and we used to play, like, with the audience members. We used to pull them up on stage and play games with them and stuff like that, like, while they were really drunk. And there was one that involved ping pong balls, not as bad as it sounds. And one day we get on stage and we do the big setup and we pull the people up on stage, and one of my co-host sort of people realized we didn't have the ping pong balls. I was still upstairs in the because the change room wasn't actually just off stage; it was actually up a flight of stairs. So so she's gone, "Oh, Austin, entertain them for a minute. I'll be back." And so I turn around, just pure instinct. I turn around, look at the crowd like a deer in headlights, Austin Powers style, like this. And then I just start doing this tap dance routine. Where I'm doing the full like terrible tap dance, do the thing where you turn sideways and do these ones and stuff, and I sort of ended up just going crazy, and then ending up in a backspin where I ended up, how you do a backspin and then you lie on your side like this, like with your propping yourself up with your elbow and stuff.
Yeah.
And I did that, and dude, the crowd went fucking ape shit because they clearly knew something was wrong, and I've just like switched it on like instantly. I've just done this stupid tap routine and everything, and I'm doing the Austin Powers heavy breath. At the end of everything, he's always standing there like this.
Yeah.
It was one of my pure, thespian moments of pure genius. Anyway, getting back to this. Okay, so I'm just trying to. The tricky part I had when I did the preliminaries. Layout sketches for this originally was it's hard to make something look like a shadow on a flat plane that's not distorted in some way. You know what I mean? Like usually you'll see a shadow going up the wall and it'll be long and stretched out and stuff. But this is like going to be. It's got to somehow still look really 2D, which is the tricky part I found last time, because you sort of have to draw the figure as if they're there. And then just outline it and shade it black, because otherwise you won't get the details in the right place and stuff like that. And it's a challenge, but here we go. Just one of the topics I wanted to talk about today was I was listening to a TED Talk the other day. I used to be obsessed with TED Talks, and I haven't listened to one in a long time. And I sort of wanted to get back into it. So I saw this one. The title was something like "Bring on the Female Superheroes." And I thought, that's cool because I'm right into that sort of stuff and all this. And it turned out it was a lecture by a guy named Christopher Bell, who's he's like a media studies professor, I think, or something. He's high up anyway. He's like way into studying the media and obviously, he basically started talking about how great it is that we live in a world now with all these great superheroes, and he's a comic nerd from way back and all that. And he was sort of talking about how great that is, and then he said, "Well, I've got a daughter, and she's cool too. She's actually like a black belt or halfway to a black belt in Kenpo. She loves action heroes and stuff, and she's sort of slowly turning into one. But she's also a massive nerd because her mother's an athlete, so she got into martial arts and stuff, and her dad's a nerd. So, and he was the crux of the the whole thing that he was getting at is he would take her shopping to go look for cool stuff for the characters that she loves, like Black Widow and, Game of Thrones characters. Even though she doesn't watch the show, she's a huge fan of, Daenerys and all that. And she's trying to, wants to play and dress up like those characters. And those costumes and toys and stuff just don't exist. And it's not the first time we've had this problem either. Like, that there was, with Star Wars, Princess Leia, there was never any real merchandise. And even when they were talking about the new movie, Rey isn't on anything. It's really tough to find something to do with Rey. And there was even things where they've, he was saying that something got released recently by Disney. And he said Disney's always had Disney princesses and stuff like that. And it's always been a market. But if it's a sci-fi princess, it doesn't seem to count,
Yeah.
And he was saying that there was something they released recently. He said they're usually doing really good with it. They do better than most, but they recently released that a backpack or something with the image of Darth Vader and where Leia's facing off against Darth Vader on the ship, and they've replaced Leia with Luke.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean? Like it's almost to the point where it's insidious. Like. And he's saying she wants heroes and she wants to play as these heroes. And sometimes she wants to play as the boy heroes. She wants to be Captain America and stuff. But sometimes she doesn't, And when she doesn't, there isn't an avenue for that sort of thing. And what struck a chord with me as to why this is important, obviously, is the main character of our book here is female, And I know from knowing you that you're a big fan of female protagonists in video games and stories and all that. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with the fact that, the main character of this book is Nissa, probably because you've had a lot of experience reading and with entertainment things based around female protagonists.
Kind of the opposite, actually.
Really?
Yeah, like the main reason I'm so drawn to female characters is because they're so few and far between. Well, good, strong female characters anyway.
So it's more that there's a uniqueness to them. You're not choosing your typical, like if you have an option to choose a female character in a game and a male one, you tend, from what I've seen, to pick a female protagonist.
Yeah, I do. And it's mainly because I kind of get sick of not seeing the strong female characters. So in that case, I'll just make one.
Yeah. There you go. You create the lore and the story, in a video game, and that's exactly what you've done here. And I don't know, it just, like, I was listening to it going, man, that's why it's important us doing what we're doing, and it's also important to maintain her as a, like to still make her feminine, but at the same time just like amazing. You know what I mean? Like, don't make her a tomboy or, or have a lot of male traits. She's still a woman, or in this case, right now, a girl. She shouldn't be a strong guy with a lot of guy traits. You know what I mean? She should be written feminine, but still have great ability. Which is, again, getting back to Jessica Jones. I think that's a great thing about her story is she really comes off as a female character. She's strong and powerful, but she still has a lot of, like, her base character traits are clearly that she's a woman, And I kind of dig that. She's an ass kicker, but she's a lady, So that was I thought it was really interesting. But it sort of gives us, like, it puts us in a position where we have to be responsible, with
definitely.
this. So that's I
was going to say something and it totally just it flew out of my head. Completely flew out of my head.
Well, if this Corey guy would just shut up for 2 seconds, maybe you could get an edge in word and edgewise. Yeah, but you know what? If you find it, like, it's one of the more recent sort of TED Talks on iTunes. I just listened to it like a podcast. It really was eye-opening, and he was like obviously upset about it, obviously, because you don't create a TED talk about something that you don't care too much about. But he really blew the lid wide open for me. Like as far as I had no idea that it was. I mean, I'd heard things about like where's all the Ray this and where's this and that. And it did illustrate how it is not good enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to hear hearsay and whatnot, and
yeah, but he's speaking from experience.
Yeah, exactly. He's throwing it at you like this is actually what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought it was interesting, and it relates to what we're doing here. So yeah, thought I'd bring that up. But if you can find it out there, listen to it. It's definitely worth listening. His name's Christopher Bell, and it's a really good TED talk. So particularly if you're into the sort of things we're into with Marvel, DC, Disney. I mean, all of the the 6 major conglomerates that actually own all the media.
Yeah.
They're all guilty of it, so it's interesting.
Yeah, and they run the world essentially.
Yeah, but do you know what though? Like, and I feel like we need to make an effort to be better at the the entertainment that we choose as well. Like you have to watch what you like. There's no point in getting involved in things that you're not going to be attracted to on a entertainment level. Just for a cause, there's no point going out and seeking out like notably like feminine sort of things if you don't want to. But at the same time, there is choices out there that are great if you're willing to look for them. Like this, I mean, Wonder Woman. To me, I watched the trailer for that again the other night, and dude, I'm so psyched for that movie.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. And not because it's Wonder Woman and it's a chick or anything like that. It just looks fucking amazing, and she's baller as fuck. You know what I mean? And if I was a young girl, I'd be like, holy shit, I watch that, I can kick ass like anybody else can. And I literally watched that trailer like the same night I listened to that podcast just by sheer coincidence. And I went, this is exactly what we need. Not like, and remember originally when they were talking about a Wonder Woman movie, there's no way she could, a female superhero character could hold up an entire film. That was the general rhetoric on the internet. And I was thinking, well, I don't see why not.
I kind of blame Disney for that.
Yeah.
They've had so many opportunities to make a Black Widow solo movie. And
yes.
Like, there's no reason not to. It should have been done like 5 goddamn years ago.
Yeah, they sort of make a joke similar to that in what little of the fractured butthole I've played, where the kids are all having, it was in all the trailers. It's not a spoiler, but it's kids are having a big superhero debate about their superhero universe they're trying to create, and it's like, Token's upset because he doesn't get a solo movie until like the third what's it called, the third phase of the thing. And it's like Cartman's like adamant that he can't have one because he's black. It's the same situation. Like, but Wonder Woman and Black Widow shouldn't. People will buy tickets if it's. You just need to put the term Marvel or essentially, not so much lately, but DC. On there, and people will go. We're happy to watch her be a major player in any of the others like movies. Why not this? Yeah. Yeah. So,
does Marvel have any solo female movies coming out? I can't really think of any.
Yeah, I can't think of any either. Not offhand. There might be, but I mean, who are the characters? You've got Black Widow.
Oh, friggin', if they do Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be one.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Has Captain Marvel always been female? I feel like Captain Marvel, or unless there's two Captain Marvels that I'm not familiar with.
I'm not too familiar with my Marvel history, but I mean, Shazam was called Captain Marvel.
That might be what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
And there was that big whole hubbub, Marvel going, hey, you can't call him Captain Marvel, and you see, we're kind of like, fuck you, we're calling him Captain Marvel.
Oh, I see. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, right. Okay, that must be what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, maybe.
A lot of the audience may not know this, but I haven't been involved in comics as long as I probably would have liked to have been. I sort of started. I mean, I used to collect Spawn comics when I was in high school back in the 90s, but the 90s. I just dated myself hard. But I took a long hiatus from it, Always interested, but like I wasn't like comic books. I just until I got a local comic store again, it never really crossed my path, you know. And I started collecting again back when Guardians must have just been out, because I started with like the Rocket and Groot books and Rocket Raccoon, Scotty Young's books and stuff, and getting back into it. So yeah, the new movie's coming out soon, so that gives you an idea how long it's been. Not that long, but still, what, a year or so, 2 years? I'm just trying to think. I got an entire run of Batman, Superman.
Was what, 3 years ago?
Was it really? Okay, so yeah, you know. Dude, I'm old school when it comes to comic books. Now I've got to try and figure out how I'm going to... I've got both figures there. I'll tidy this all up when I go to ink it, so she'll just be flat black against the background here.
So the audience knows this is the only time I get to see the pages as well.
Yeah. It's not.
Or he never sends me anything.
I'm just not going to bring them in, you know. Actually, that's a good point. I should photograph them and send them to you. I never even thought of that.
I mean, you used to, but you haven't done it for a while.
Yeah. I just remembered she's supposed to have big chunky boots on. You know what's really funny? Just after doing the podcast on Saturday, I was like, one of the things that I always wanted with this era of Nissa is to have, like, you know, she's a little girl. She's got a party dress kind of thing going on with a pair of big chunky boots that aren't necessarily laced up, that are like, they seem like they're hand-me-downs or they're someone else's. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're too big for her.
Yeah, big chunky look, like army boot sort of things. And it was kind of one of those things I was like, been trying to just get the vibe of that just right. And I couldn't really visualize what it looked like. And I went down to the park to walk the dogs, and literally there was a little girl there with pigtails wearing a party dress and a pair of boots. And I was like, that's exactly it. You know, like, I mean, it's not like it's complicated. I should have been able to visualize it in my head, but just seeing it in person and the way that the dress moved and everything like that made all the difference. You know, and I'm like,
I'm kind of concerned. Why are you going to a park to stare at little girls?
I was walking my goddamn feminine dogs. I got Pomeranians. Nobody's ever going to suspect me of being anything other than a gay man. Oh, man. Yeah, okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that so far. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to add to this. Probably some...
Did you watch the trailer for Guardians?
Is there only one? Because if there is, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a minute.
Rocket and Groot looking through some body hole in someone's body at the end.
Yeah.
Genius. We need to put that shot in one of ours.
I clicked on it this morning on YouTube, and I'm watching it, and there's no dialogue at all for like 80% of the trailer, and then it cuts to Drax and Star-Lord having a chat. Man, when they started talking, I finally realized that the trailer I was watching was in Russian.
Yeah! Oh my god!
So I'm like,
It's funny. A lot of trailers must come out of there because I was just talking about the Wonder Woman trailer I watched the other night was literally in Russian.
Oh wow!
Yeah. At first I thought, oh cool, she's got the dialect down just bang on, you know. And then the rest of everyone else is talking in Russian. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Plus, you know, she's meant to be Greek.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Hang on, I'm gonna take out one of these fence palings because why the fuck not? Yeah.
I know it's a long way off, but I'm really curious to see what it's like when the color's added.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm gonna. Yeah, I think I won't go too far into it without inking and coloring a page, because I genuinely want to sort of get it in my head what I'm doing as far as that whole process goes, because it'll make a difference to how I draw and how much detail I put into the pencils and how much I don't, you know, because that's sort of the challenge right now. I'm looking at it and going, should I put any texture there? Like the fence that she's sitting on in this panel up here in the top left, how much detail should I put into that? Should I put like, is it made of wood? Should I put brickwork there? I don't know. It's one of those things that I could mess around with just like watercolor, just a wash, You know what I mean? And put texture in there without having to draw too much over it. Because I want to do that. I want to leave as much detail out as I possibly can to really have let the watercolors do their work, you know.
Yeah.
Because I really want it to be sort of a unique sort of book, as far as you open it up and it doesn't look like a typical comic. Because they're the ones that always attract me. That's what I liked about was it Seven to Eternity? It just doesn't like it's very typical comic style art, but at the same time it doesn't. It has its own flavor, you know, particularly with the coloring and the color palette and stuff that they choose and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual paper felt different too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it did. It felt like it was printed on a heavier stock. Not so much heavier, just different. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
That always kind of grabs me. It's like with
it's a premium sort of feel.
Yeah, like the latest Alan Moore book that he's writing, Providence, which I'm still picking up, but I've kind of stopped reading.
Okay.
It's very.
You're adding it to your pile of shame.
Not really. I think I'll wait for it to finish because it's only going to be 12 issues.
Yeah.
But he's sort of taking his time with it. But then I'll probably finish it off because it's a good book. It's just you've read Watchmen, haven't you?
Yep.
You know how at the end of every sort of issue there's like a long sort of chapter of just writing of just letters.
Yeah, but I mean I read the trade on that though.
Oh yeah, but like it's got like the whole. I think a lot of it is the old Night Owl's sort of memoirs.
Okay,
sort of reading a lot of that crap and the pirate story as well. I think. Yeah, he's kind of done that as well in Providence. At the end of every issue, there's like 6 pages of like the main character's journal, and you're just reading through it, and it kind of throws me out a bit because like I came here to read a comic, not a novel. Like I read novels just fine, but like I read a novel when I know I'm reading a novel.
Yeah, you know, it's comic book time.
Yeah, exactly.
Leave me out of this.
Yeah, it's kind of like I feel like watching a comedy today.
Yeah.
Get stuck with a horror movie.
Cool. Yeah, you know what? I don't mind that too much. All right, cool. So I think that's the basic layout for page 2 done. I'm still not entirely sold on this little time thing. I might have to... Hang on, maybe it's just too short.
I love the fact that you went to grab something and you haven't mentioned it since you went and grabbed it.
I'm getting to it. I just got caught up in the drawing, which is kind of why we're here in the first place.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was talking about just oddball comics, and I was down there today looking for something to talk about tonight. Just in case I came across something like a gem, and literally, there it is. Bill and Ted Go to Hell. Being a 90s kid, when I say 90s kid, I'm like a 70s kid who spent a lot of time in the 90s. I was a huge... Well, I guess... No, Bill and Ted was it late 80s? Maybe it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, so either way, like... I haven't even flipped through this yet or anything, but I just I opened it up and there's Death playing like Connect 4 and getting all excited. And I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And the very first thing I did was took a photo of the cover and sent it to Evan, who's also, I mean, he's probably the biggest Wayne's World and Bill and Ted fan in the world. And and he's like, hang on, I gotta find the exact text. He replies with, cool, is it 80s San Dimas compliant? And I'm like, yeah. So I'll get back to you when I've read this one, but this is definitely something I'm interested in. The art style is actually pretty cool. It's kind of, it definitely has its own flavor. The artist has his own flavor. Like the likenesses aren't great, but it doesn't really matter, like it doesn't look like Keanu. Oh, dude, Napoleon's in it. Holy shit! I mean, I'm sold. You sold the whole series. It's a 1 of 4. I mean. Another one, actually, and I know very little about this one too. I was speaking to Tom, who's our local comic book representative. Shout out to Tom, who he said he'd listen to this, so we'll see. I'll see if he calls me on the name drop. This one called Reborn. It's Greg Capullo's new book.
Oh shit! I got to pick that up.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Because I basically said, look, I want something I can
Tom,
talk.
if you're listening, put that on my standing order.
um, it's so Mark Miller wrote it, and Greg Capullo did the pencils, but I don't know. Like it's again,
That's a dynamite combo, by the way.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Miller and Capello. Fuck me.
Well, it's you know what's interesting about it. Just flipping through it, I haven't read this yet either, but you've got it looks like it exists in several dimensions because you've got heaps of different how would you explain it? Like well, vibes really. So you got like what looks like present day, and then you've got characters who look like they're from Braveheart, and then this chick looks like she's from space. You know, and there's a spaceship in there and stuff. It just sort of jumps around. And until I read it, obviously I won't get a beat on it. But I asked Tom for something. I said, what's the biggest hype train at the moment? What's something that possibly I or Marshman haven't read that we could look into and maybe discuss? And he looked through the racks and he was like, oh, shit. Yeah, Greg Capullo's new book. Here you go. Grab that. So I'll read that. Hopefully you'll get your copy and we can talk about it maybe on the next podcast and see where that's headed. But I just wanted to sort of set up like I was saying to you earlier today about possibly like a segment where we review a comic a week or something like that. It might be interesting to do. Because this is a comic related podcast, even though we talk about it that very little.
I don't know, I still think it's in the majority. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You haven't read Huck, have you?
No.
Book before this one.
No, did you notice that flip open at the back page there?
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is.
It's such a different take on the superhero genre.
Yeah. Explain it. What's the deal?
It's about a guy who grows up in like a small town. He was left in an orphanage, and he always seemed kind of like he didn't seem like the brightest bulb in the box, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But he pretty much has. I want to say he's very much like Superman. Like I don't think he can fly though. I think he can jump very high, but he's pretty much got super strength.
Falling and he has this, with style.
Yeah, he has this ability to find what people have lost.
Okay, it's interesting.
That's just one of his powers, I suppose. And anyway, like he lives in this small town. The people in the town keep his secret, but word eventually gets out that he's super strong and blah blah blah, and he gets sort of national media attention, and he's not a fan of it. Like he just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
He ends up sort of going off away from everything, and there's more to the story, and it goes to different places, but that's pretty much the whole setup of it. So.
Okay, so here's one. I mean, it sounds to me like a little bit like, but exactly the opposite. Green Mile sort of character.
Yeah, kind of.
In that he has abilities, but he's not like he's just a sweetheart who looks like a big scary dude. And I mean, the difference here is that guy they didn't tell anybody about him. they just fried him. Spoilers if anybody hasn't seen the Green Mile. No, that sounds interesting. I might have to check that one out.
I mean, it's only 6 issues, I think.
Okay,
so
cool. Yeah,
if you get a trade, you'll fly through that real quick.
That's right up my alley. Yeah, cool. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, guys, I'm just doing some measuring.
Some maths.
Yeah, doing some maths. Oh my god! If my friend Tim heard me say maths, oh my god. Hey man, when you do maths in society, which is what I did, which is like, I wouldn't say remedial mathematics, but it's close enough. Like there was, okay, so you had your 2-unit and 3-unit math, and then there was maths in society, which is what I did because I didn't care about maths at all. Although oddly enough, and you wouldn't know it from this line work, but when it came to geometry, I got 100% in every exam I ever did, because I could visualize, isometric things and shapes and area and all that sort of stuff. I could visualize it real easy, so I could always tell if I was getting the answer right. because obviously I'm a very visual person.
I mean, you're good at pool.
Huh? Yeah. Well,
That
you'd think I'd be better, but it's more a case of just, it's the same when I did tech drawing. Admittedly, I only did that in like year 7 and 8, right? So you do pretty basic stuff. It's like, okay, here's like a plan of something. Draw an isometric view of the same thing. I barely even pulled out a calculator, to be honest. I just eyeballed it, and more often than not, I had it, a perfect design, because it's just one of those things that I've always understood, is how things are supposed to look form wise. And I mean, I'm sure if that sort of shit wouldn't have flown as I got like up in the years, if I continued doing tech drawing, but I definitely got away with it in year 7 and 8. Just by figuring it out on the fly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to there. Okay. But yeah, it's just one of those natural abilities I always had. Whereas everyone else was sitting there freaking out because they couldn't work out the math formula to do it, or the angles or all this other stuff. I was just there going, yeah, easy. But get me to add 2 numbers together in my head, and I'll look like a special needs kid,
Yeah.
And not one of the ones who are great at that. But yeah, like it's just one of those things that, like, visual stuff always been great. Anything else? Although having said that, things like creative writing and things like that, like when I came first in my year in English early on in school, and stuff like that, just because like creative writing, I always had an interesting story to tell, which is basically what they do in English. English in the early years is all about you learning how to write basic stuff. So I guess that when you start reading books, you understand them a little bit better, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I always seem to get away with that stuff really well. To be honest with you, the only problem I really had with school was studying. If I studied, I probably would have done all right. But I was too busy drawing and playing guitar, so can scratch all those ideas.
Where you are now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm crushing it. Yeah, but
school is a bit weird for me because, like, for the longest time, I've always considered myself to be a writer.
Yeah.
And even like in school, like the creative writing stuff, I came first and whatnot. I got the highest grades, blah blah blah.
Nice.
I think a lot of that was because the period of time, because I went to high school between 2000 and 2005. I graduated 2005. Wow. I felt like do you feel old, Corey?
I graduated in 95, so maybe just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I was one of the rare kids that actually read books. And like I've been reading books since I was like, 5 years old. I was reading stuff well beyond my level at that age. And which, helped me to become the writer I am, and blah blah blah. I remember one time as a kid, I think I was in a Target or a Big W with my family. And every time we would go into one of those, I would head straight for the books and just see what was there. And like I was a big Goosebumps kid. Like, I fucking love reading Goosebumps. I remember one time I ran up there, and I think the books are relatively cheap, so my parents would always get me one when we go in. And I'd go up there and I picked one. I can't remember the name of it, but it had like mud people on the front. And I was like, I want this one. My dad was like, yeah, no worries. So this is at the start of the trip to Big W or wherever it was. So I'd carry the book around with me in the store. Yeah. And I'd be reading it while we're all walking through the store. And we finally got to the cash register, and I was like, I finished the book.
Yeah, all right, put that down.
Yeah, put that one down. Go get another one. It's like, all right, don't worry. Yeah, I think, I was one of the rare kids at school that actually read books. Like,
for fun, as opposed to because they had a gun to their head.
Yeah, exactly. But like even then, there was one book that was required reading, and I think it was called Raw. I can't remember who wrote it. And it was an okay book. Katy Perry. Too bad. Shout out to Rob. Yeah, it was an okay book. I didn't mind it, but since it was required reading, like a lot of the students actually bothered to read it and like, wow, this book's actually really interesting. Blah blah
Finally, you
blah.
had something you could talk to people about.
And not really, because I was like, yeah, it's an okay book, and they're like, what? It's like this is amazing. It's like it's because you don't read any other books, you got nothing to freaking compare it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that helped with the creative writing process and
You know what? This sounds like an excuse, but I was a fan of reading as well growing up. Like for example, one we had this thing. I think I must have been in year five it must have been year five, I think. And they had this thing where you had to read a certain number of books by the end of you had like 4 weeks to read a bunch
yeah.
of books, and it was like kids books and stuff like that, like that sort of thing. And I'm like, I'm not interested in any of that bullshit. I want to read Stephen King's Firestarter. And Stephen King's Firestarter is like, that thick. I can't really get a gauge of it. Hang on, that thick. There you go. I'll do it on the big camera. And I mean, as a kid, you sort of only get to read in like, they give you 20 minutes a day in class to read, sit quietly and read something. And so it was taking me a long time to get through it. And I made a deal with the teacher. I said, look, I'm not interested in any of these stupid kids books. Can I read this? And this counts as 8 books, And I think from memory, I think she was a total bitch about it and said no. But I just didn't pay attention. I just read that anyway. And it was, dude, what a great book. Even as a small kid, I think I got the themes. I understood it because I could relate to this character who's a young little girl.
Yeah, well, King's written about kids a fair bit.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of had that Stand By Me, Stranger Things sort of vibe.
Yeah, but it was amazing because here's this kid who's roughly my age, played by Drew Barrymore in the movie, who I also had a massive crush on as a kid. So that didn't hurt. But she had these powers. And I mean, I would find myself as a kid, because when you're a kid, you got a massive imagination. And I'd be like, well, hell, if she can sit there and make something catch fire or move something with the mind, why can't I? And because he sells it so well as like, it's the power of the mind. If you focus hard enough, or, your brain can do way more than people give it credit for. And the only reason we can't do things is because no one really tries, because they don't believe in it, And so sure enough, I gave it a run and didn't set anything on fire. And that's when my love of reading died. No, but yeah, like I honestly, one of my all-time favorite books. Really cool.
For the record, for anyone listening, I am aware that Stephen King wrote Stand By Me, so don't
Oh yeah,
chastise me.
That's right. Was it? Hang on, who directed the film?
God, no idea. I've seen the movie once.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. I think it was. I was going to say it was someone generic, like I'm going to say generic when you say Steven Spielberg, but no, it wasn't like that. It was someone else.
I have a computer right in front of me, so
yeah, well, you Google that shit.
The IMDb's.
You googly. Speaking of movies, one of the things I brought up to talk about today was, everybody, the talk on the internet right now is the buzz surrounding the Red Dead Redemption reveal.
Yeah.
And
I'm so fucking excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk online about, hey, don't get excited, don't pre-order. They're like, people believe that by not pre-ordering, they have the developers over a barrel. But we're talking about Rockstar. They don't give a shit if you pre-order or not. They know you're going to buy the game. They're not stupid.
Yeah. Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner, that was it. Yeah. I knew it was somebody who I thought was a strange... I never would have guessed it was him. And when I found out it was Rob Reiner, I went, oh, okay, fair enough. Wow, cool. And yeah, like the thing about Red Dead that I think is interesting is it's going to hit at exactly the right time in history, where by that time I can only imagine that Westworld is going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. It's up to it's up to episode 3,
yeah.
and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. It looks quality. I think it'll find that same audience that requires a little bit more from their television shows, like your Game of Thrones audiences. I mean, it's not really fantasy, so you'll probably lose some of that crowd.
It's a stellar cast as well.
Oh yeah, dude, they've spared no expense. Yeah, but dude, I'm hooked. I think it's fantastic. But it's almost like if I didn't know better and I knew how long these things are in production before we hear about them and things like that, I would say that it was suspiciously like convenient timing. Yeah, because like we got these, everything's Western right now. You've got the Hateful Eight, what else is there? There's
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, Magnificent Seven and all those sort of movies they're bringing out.
Are they doing a Dirty Dozen?
I think they are. Yeah, they're remaking all of this stuff because it hasn't been done for a while. Westerns haven't sort of been a thing. They've tried their hand at it a few times in recent years, and they've made some great sort of Western sort of movies, but I don't think they really had the impact because people weren't ready to switch over to Westerns just yet. You know what I mean? They found their audiences, but it wasn't really, like, culturally they weren't huge. Interesting thing about Westerns I didn't know until very recently. The reason they made so many of them back in, like, our parents' sort of vintage, or mine at least, was because they were cheap. You just had to literally drive 3 hours into the desert from California, from Hollywood, and all the stuff was set up. You could reuse props and everything like that, like because studios used to make the films themselves. So they'd be like, hey, we've got a whole fucking town built. We can use that to make 6 movies, you didn't have to look hard to find compelling stories for the time anyway, because there's plenty of historical stories you can draw from, Daniel Boone and, characters that are part of the psyche of American Western culture and all that sort of rhetoric and stuff like that is all readily available if you without having to try too hard. And it was just cheap. There was plenty of people in the business that horse wranglers and all that sort of stuff. So, but see, now when you make a Western, it's got to be bigger than Ben-Hur and it'll probably cost you a goddamn fortune. And no one's going to go see it unless Brad Pitt's in it or somebody, but
I do have to. I think I slightly disagree with you on the whole. It's making a comeback sort of thing because they've always kind of been there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like there's been quality Western stuff like Deadwood, for instance.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
I consider Firefly to be a space Western.
Good call. Yeah, I agree with that.
But look, as you can see, they're mainly TV. I think a few movies coming out which will probably help it along, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like, even Quentin Tarantino's sort of been on a Western spiel lately because he's had Django as well. And
yeah, but he's hugely inspired by Westerns, He's always banging about the Wild Bunch and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, spaghetti Western sort of dude.
Yeah. Kind of thing. Sergio Leone kind of stuff. Yeah, but, man, I'm looking for my... I'm back on page 1, people, in case you're wondering. I'm trying to find a reference that I did for page 1. That's all good. I'm just going to wing it. But it's definitely... I think it's one of those things where we're going to find it's going to be a perfect storm of that sort of thing in the next year or two.
Because I consider superhero movies to be the modern Western.
They definitely are. They definitely are. And it's not often that you get... It's sort of like it's one of those things where Westerns, it was a genre, a very specific genre. If you went to a Western, you knew what you were getting. And I think it's the same thing. You're right with superhero movies. It's kind of like when you walk into the cinema, if you're a fan of that stuff, you'll probably get something out of it. You know what you're getting yourself into. Maybe not always are the movies hugely successful or as far as like relating to everybody in the crowd. DC, I'm talking to you. But,
to be fair, Marvel's had some stinkers. No one just talks about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Example?
Iron Man 3.
Good point. Yeah. You know what though? But the problem is that's sort of sunken into the lore of Iron Man now. Like, people don't talk about it, but they accept that it's there and they're happy that it's there because it's brought like so much more in into the universe.
That doesn't stop it from being a piece of shit.
Yeah. Was that the one with Mickey Rourke?
No, that was Iron Man 2. That was also not that great.
I'm like, Mickey Rourke just looks like, I don't even know. He looks like an artificial human. It's like they pulled a character off Westworld. He's had so much surgery now.
It's kind of interesting. Like the Marvel's pretty much headlining character, Iron Man, is batting 1 for 3 in my book, anyway.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, but everybody. Do you know why though? Because the Iron Man movies don't matter because he's such a badass character in the ensemble movies. That's what it is. Like he carries those movies. He's so charismatic.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's what sells those movies is him and Cap's chemistry, and particularly Civil War because it was really about those two guys. But yeah, I think maybe if the Iron Man movies hadn't at least started out successfully, we wouldn't have made it to the Avengers and we wouldn't have made it to those things. So there's something to be said for Iron Man and all that. Maybe just you don't have to watch the films, you just have to know that they exist,
Yeah. I mean, credit where credit's due. It is sort of responsible for everything we have now.
Exactly, yeah. And it's the benchmark by which we base all movies, unfortunately, for DC. But yeah.
Well, some of us do that, some of us don't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I like me. I take it. I'm that guy who never hated anything. And I walked out of Suicide Squad particularly, and Batman vs Superman as well. Just going, man, everyone's gonna love that shit because I had a great time, and then the internet sort of had their fucking moment to talk about it, and
Suicide Squad was a lot more polarizing than BVS was. BVS just seemed to be like everyone just seemed to hate it.
Yeah,
I could barely find any love for it, but Suicide Squad was very 50-50.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I forgot where you landed on that. What was your like now that a few months have passed and all that? What?
Well, I ended up seeing it twice in the cinemas, I believe.
Yeah. And what was your perspective on it?
It's fun. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, I think that's. I sort of felt the same, and I think it was one of those movies where I don't know why anyone would have gone in expecting anything else. By the way it was marketed and everything, it was definitely like that sort of thing. Maybe because David Ayer had just done Fury, and that was that was like a big serious kind of film with real human interest story kind of thing. Yeah. And then you've got like this gun-toting troublemakers, as the next outing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also well aware that I'm in the minority with the Harley Quinn.
You didn't like her? I mean, okay. We should establish that you're an old school Harley Quinn fan from way back. Like, yeah. I've seen you drop some serious bank on statues and things like that.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at it right now, going, "Don't worry, baby. don't worry about what the mean man said about you."
I actually was looking at the statue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been a fan of Harley since the animated series, which where she came from, and she's changed over the years. I accept that. I'm actually very satisfied with who she is in the comics now.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, Margot did a very good job as Harley, but to me,
she did a great job of playing that Harley.
Yeah. She, like, to me, being like the fucking, I always have issues, like slight issues with movies, and like, it's a flaw. Like, I shouldn't have that sort of problem, I guess. I don't know, because like they're movies, they're their own thing. They're not exactly copy the comic, but there's still that part of me that's too nerdy to sort of let it go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Harley wasn't quite nutty enough, if you know what I mean. Like she's like in the movie, because I get like it's also darker and grittier, but Harley essentially she's very bright and optimistic and very just poppy and bubbly and whatnot. She has that. Imagine the typical blonde bimbo.
Yeah.
With the crazy dialed up to fucking 20.
Yeah.
and she's just, jumping everywhere off the walls and just happy and bubbly, like I said. Mm-hmm. And she wasn't quite that.
Yeah, I see. I know what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I haven't read a lot of strictly, comic adaptations of her, and I to be honest, I didn't watch the TV series. I think I missed that one by a few years, the animated series. But like I've read the New 52 sort of the run that you gave me the trade for, and I felt like the Joker and Harley in those stories is not the typical Joker and Harley you'd get in like a Batman or a Harley Quinn run of books. I believe I feel like it's different, and particularly more so the Joker, because the Joker is just batshit crazy and evil. He doesn't have any charm to him. He's just dark and sinister and violent and evil. He doesn't have any redeeming features that everybody,
unpredictable.
Yeah, everybody finds and think. And to be fair, in that book particularly, he's a bit player. He's not really part of the squad. He's not anything. He just flies in and out to sort of give Harley Quinn a hard time. And like I've said before, it almost feels like it even gets to the point where he's too crazy for her. And she's even though she's like obsessed with the Joker, she's still a little bit sort of, oh shit, okay, it might be time to dial it back a notch, Yeah. That's at least that's the vibe I got from it. Yeah. But it's I mean, I feel like I don't have much place to say whether or not she was a good Harley Quinn or not, because I don't know enough about the character. Only what I've heard in recent years.
I mean, she was a good, like you said, she was good as that Harley. Yeah. And like I get it, there's different Harleys and different interpretations. So yeah.
But that's the beauty of comics.
Could have worked on the accent a bit more, but she did lose it a bit.
Yeah, yeah, which is weird because she was doing the exact same accent in Wolf of Wall Street, and she seemed to just nail it.
Fucking nailed it, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh man, I'm struggling with this panel. It's driving me crazy. I'm drawing young Nissa front on, and she just looks like a chubby old person. Like she's not looking like a kid.
I actually want to go back to Red Dead, and you mentioned that people are saying don't pre-order it.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. There's this thing at the moment on the internet where I think people are just jack of having to pre-order to get like collectible stuff or like desirable items or extra content, and then getting stiffed with a half-finished game. Which, to be fair, I kind of agree with. Like things like anybody who was super hyped about No Man's Sky may have, I can see how they could be burned by the whole process of pre-ordering. But see, my point is pre-order to, like I was saying to some guys I was talking to the other day, all of this sort of rhetoric is going to last just long enough until each one of the people involved misses out on a new release. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it happens, in our store and stuff like that. We get games that sell out, and for 2 weeks we're telling people, sorry, we don't have any. Need for Speed was one of those. It was just an outstanding a hit that took off. No one expected it to, so we were really undersupplied for it.
I think Dragon Ball was one of those as well.
Exactly, the Dragon Ball games really do well.
Despite the fact they're the same game every time.
Yeah, and they do sort of. They creep. It's one of those ones that doesn't sell massive on the first day, but if it's school holidays, you'll sell out of them in a week.
Yeah, or word of mouth. Mainly.
Yeah, exactly. Someone goes, "There's a new Dragon Ball game out," and everyone runs out to get it. Yeah. That's looking a little bit better. But yeah, I think that's the thing. They're all going to be all militant about, we don't pre-order. Let's see if we all stand together. And it's like, Red Dead came out. I didn't get a copy, so maybe I will pre-order next time. But you don't know. There's no law that you have to pick it up. If you leave a $5 deposit, I'm sure you can go in there and say, hey, look, I just want to put that on another game or take it off something else. If you can still wait for the reviews. There's no difference in pre-ordering something and being disappointed or rushing out on day one and buying it and being disappointed. It's the same thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, I get it. Like, I've even been burnt by pre-orders before. Like, Arkham Knight is one of them
Yeah,
because of the
on PC.
fucking disastrous PC release.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, it's a good way to change. It's mainly the publisher's reasoning, I guess, or it's publisher's fault,
Yeah.
quote unquote, that pre-orders and pre-order incentives and whatnot keep happening is because you know they need to make money.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It's like I guess it's like the DLC model though, like you know, or microtransactions, I should say. It's one of those things where you know everybody really hated the idea, but now everybody's come across one or two games that they're like, well, just this one, and then it just becomes second nature to just pull out your bank book, your credit card every time something's going to cost you $1.20. You know, it's like for the longest time I never bought an app on my iPhone because I'm like, ugh. You know, I'm sure I can find a free version that does the same thing. It's so weird. You'll go out and you'll buy a $80 game, but spending $1 on an app that you're going to use every week on your iPhone is like, that's beyond reason.
Yeah, it's out of the question. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you do it once or twice and all of a sudden it just becomes second nature. You're like, a buck. What's a buck? It's a Coke. Boom. You know? And it's the same with microtransactions. You know, half the people who play Clash of Clans probably expected to never pay a cent. I'm gonna play this game as much as I want for free, and now you know. Oh God, I was talking to a guy today who's he's $2,000 deep into what's that space game that isn't out yet?
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen.
Yeah. Wow, $2,000.
Yeah, you know the guy too. I don't want to add him on the podcast, but he's a regular customer of ours, friend of Paulie's. We were talking about that today, and we're talking about Eve and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh man, I've blown $2,000 on oh mate, because I've got some mad ships though." I'm like, "That's cool, but when's the game come out?" Yeah. Apparently, it's playable now. It's pretty good. They're sort of releasing it in phases of, you know, at first you could go into your hangar and you could walk around your ships and look at them and hop in the cockpit and look around and be all excited, and then you could. You know, then they brought out, like, you could play against AI in a small area, and then that you could multiplayer in a small area, and they're slowly rolling out bigger and bigger gameplay options. Yeah, but I
think that game was fully kickstarted as well, and they got like multiple millions of dollars for it.
They've made a ton of money off that. So hopefully that shows itself in the quality of game when it comes out. You know what though? No matter what they do, I think as much as it seems like a mistake to compare it to No Man's Sky. And how I guess they're metering people's expectations pretty well, but I feel like it's never going to be the game that everybody anticipates it is going to be, because it's just not possible. No game can be what everybody expects it to be, you know. But hopefully they prove it wrong. Hopefully it'd be pretty awesome. I mean, I know people have been playing Eve for many years online, and I've only heard about things on the peripheral. But boy, does it seem like it'd be a lot of fun if you sort of know what you're doing and you get way involved in it, you know?
Yeah, you just got to get past that learning curve, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, that's more of a space management game than a flight sim, you know? Although Eve Valkyrie on the VR, I just got today, I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but the demo just seemed like a hell of a lot of fun. So I guess there's elements to it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that's about all the time we've got for tonight. Thanks for watching. This podcast is brought to you by CoreyWyerArt.com. Check it out. That's where I keep all my art until we get a real sponsor. If you're watching the stream, you want to listen to us on your commute, search iTunes for Pretty Sketchy Podcast. If you're an audio listener but want to see what I'm actually doing, check us out on YouTube. Again, just search for Pretty Sketchy or Pretty Sketchy Podcast. Cool. So thanks, Michael, for joining us. And
no worries.
we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yay!
Yay!